we're going to start with the old New England Patriots. And again, as usual, we submitted our burning questions to producer Stryker. We didn't see them until now, and I'm actually excited to see what you have here. Your burning question, and I'll actually pair it with mine, and we'll answer it together here. You asked, do the Patriots have enough weapons to help Drake May avoid the sophomore slump? And my follow-up to that is, usually we say a team is a year away when we look at what they've done after free agency in the draft. Are the Patriots primed to have a winning record and maybe even have a wild card conversation in their future? Because you know Mike Vrabel very well. That culture appears to have changed overnight. So let's start with the Drake May sophomore slump question. How do we avoid that? And then we'll follow it up with, is this team going to be better than perhaps we even think they might be?
Well, to start there, my big question coming into this draft was, do they have the weapons at wide receiver? And, you look at their wide receiver group, and they have about 8 guys or so that are going to compete for the top 5 to 6 slots. And then I know they're excited about the addition of Kyle Williams, and so that should be able to help them. But then last year, Hunter Henry led them, their starting tight end led them in receptions and yards, right? And so you're going to need a little bit more production out of that receiver room. And then if you look at it, Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, and Jalen Polk all average less than 11 yards per catch. And so you'd like to see more production out of that group, and I think that is what will help Drake May avoid the sophomore slump.
Yeah, so we've talked about Kyle Williams' role as a 5'11" ex-receiver playing outside at Washington State and what his role is going to be at the next level. Is he big enough to play outside? And he certainly could be. They have Stephon Diggs. They gave him a lot of money. We'll see how he is after coming back from that ACL injury that cut short his season last year for Houston. But on the other side of the ball, Rand, they signed Milton Williams. They acquired Harold Landry III, who you're quite familiar with. They have Carlton Davis. This team, and they drafted Will Campbell on offense, but in terms of the defense, this feels like a unit under Mike Vrabel that maybe gets to 7 wins, and then you can luck your way into 2 more wins, and then if you're 9-8, you have a chance to be a wild card team. Am I a year too early on that? Because I feel pretty good about this team just looking at them on paper.
No, you're not a year early. I don't think so at all. And I just know how Vrabel is and how he's going to go through and reset that culture there and establish the culture that he's used to having in New England from his time playing there and the championships that he's won. And so he has a unique way about him in terms of getting the best out of players. And I can already tell you in what they're doing right now in the offseason program, he's out there coaching every position, which you expect from him. He's so knowledgeable and has savant-like level mind frame when it comes to playing and coaching the game of football. So I think this could be a team that's going to surprise some people in the AFC because now he has something that he hadn't had in a very long time, which is stability at the starting quarterback position. Oh, and by the way, you have Josh McDaniels back now as the offensive coordinator. So I expect him to be a little more hands-off on the offensive side of the ball than he has been in the past.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Sometimes it feels like coaches are better suited to be coordinators and head coaches, and Josh McDaniels appears to fit in that mold, and if so, that's great news for Drake May. The schedule has not officially come out, but we know who the teams are going to be that each team is going to face, and I'm just looking at the schedule of the Patriots, and I don't feel terrible about it. I think this could be a sneaky good team. At home, they're going to play the Carolina Panthers, the Browns. They'll play, of course, the Dolphins and the Jets. They have the Giants at home. You can see that here. And then the Raiders. Man, you can find 5 wins, maybe 6 if things go the way they want them to go. And then once they get on the road, you see those away games there, Ravens, Bengals, Saints, Bucks, Titans, and that's where things get interesting. But I'll just reiterate, I think this team could find their way to 7 wins and then luck their way into 2 or 3 more wins even, and then we're having a conversation where, this is the Patriots team we're used to seeing, just new faces with Mike Vrabel and Drake May at quarterback. All right, let's go down the road here. Down 95 a bit to New York, New Jersey specifically. We start with the Jets here. Your burning question, and I'll pair it with mine because they go hand in hand. You asked, can Justin Fields get it done as the Jets starting quarterback? They signed him to a 2-year deal, so it sounds like the Jets aren't even sure if that's going to happen. And then my burning question is, what's the plan at wide receiver after Garrett Wilson? A question Garrett Wilson's been asking for a couple years now. All right, Rand, is Justin Fields the guy, and how can he be the guy in New York?
Well, I'll just start with we'll see. Because so far in his career, he's only been to the playoffs once, and that was as a backup last year in Pittsburgh, where he's only seen 2 snaps. And so, to tie into your question, they still have to surround him with more weapons to make him right as a quarterback and to put him in, in winning positions to take care of the football and just take advantage of his overall skill set. So I think if you manage him properly and allow him to run the ball some and mix it up, kind of how Greg Roman has used Lamar Jackson down in Baltimore, just being able to take full advantage of his skill set and not put too much on his plate. I think that will help them, get to, creep to that 5, 6 to 7, win mark, which is something they hadn't seen in a long time. And that from there, I think is where you start.
Yeah, so they drafted Armand Mimbu, the right tackle. The offensive line, if healthy, should be in the best shape it's been in a long time. And that's the starting point for any quarterback, young or old, running quarterback or pocket passer. They drafted Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU, Jason Taylor's son. So that's going to give Justin Fields some short and intermediate help in the middle of the field and maybe take some of the pressure off Garrett Wilson, who's been begging for a number 2 for what feels like forever. Didn't work out last year with Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, of course. They did sign Josh Reynolds. They did sign veteran journeyman Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota from a few years back. And they drafted Arian Smith, the burner out of Georgia, who struggles with drops. And that's just the reality of it. Defensively, you would expect Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilkes to get that team back to where they've been previously. I'm not so much concerned about that, but I think it's fair to say that offensively, the Patriots feel like they're good ways ahead of the Jets, or is it closer than that?
No, I feel better about the Patriots, and I think if you're looking at it objectively, the Jets could be knocking on the door of being, that 4th team in the division again. But again, it depends on how they use Justin Fields, how well they take advantage of his skill set, and if he's able to put the team on his back and carry them through. And like you said, like it is any given Sunday. Those matchups and the way the league is, this league is about building parity, and I think it's pretty good parity across the league. And so he can put the team on his back and steal 2 or 3 wins somewhere at some point in their schedule.
Before we take a break here, let me ask you this. If you've been in the league 4 or 5 years now, as Justin Fields has been, and you struggle at layering the ball to the second level and throwing with anticipation, that's not going to change? Or is it going to change? And if it's not going to change, how do you build an offense around it?
I think it could get slightly better. I don't think it'll change because to me that's instinctual. And again, that's why I kept leaning on taking advantage of his ability to run. And so mixing some of that in and not putting everything on him to be a pure throwing quarterback. Just take advantage of his skill set and use it. And you have 2 years to use it. So why not just run it into the ground and then make a decision from there whether you want to extend or move on?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And I would imagine the Jets understand that for sure. They just got to build that offense around Justin. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll hit the second half of the AFC East, the Dolphins and the Bills. Bills had my favorite draft of all the teams in this draft, so we'll talk about that and Miami and what they need to do to get better right after this. All right, Rand, let's take the burning question mobile down to South Florida, specifically the Miami Dolphins. We just talked about the Patriots and the Jets. Your burning question, again, goes hand in hand with mine. We didn't see each other till just now. I'll start with mine, and then we'll end with yours and go from there. I wrote, if the offensive line holds up, Miami is in the playoff chase. I think their offensive line is sneaky, has a chance to be pretty good. And we know when Tua's healthy, he can be clinical in terms of dialing up plays and carving up defenses. So Miami's in the playoff chase, but how do they replace Jalen Ramsey? Your question was, when will they get the Jalen Ramsey trade done? And Jalen Ramsey obviously doesn't want to be there, or it sounds like they're going to move on from him at the very least. And if you're without Jalen Ramsey, is that offense, if healthy, good enough to overcome the loss of one of the best cornerbacks in the league over the last decade?
Yeah, I think you can mask it. And I think you're able to mask it just by all the different things you're able to do, up front. And then they're going to have the pass rushers to be able to apply pressure. And so, as long as you can get home on the quarterback and force them to make quick throws, then you'll be better off, just in terms of just coverage. But again, going to my burning question is, when is this deal going to get done? We've heard about the deal something that they were working on prior to the draft. You thought it would possibly get done during the draft so you can exchange some draft picks, but now it hadn't been done. And so you look at the teams who need corners probably still at this point, the Rams, the Raiders, the Vikings. And you have to take into account Jalen Ramsey's age and then his contract number. He's carrying a cap hit this year of 16.6, and then you see that number balloon to 25 and some change in 2026. And so I'm pretty sure that's the sticking point right now. It's what's going to come next. Is it going to be a reworking of the contract, or is he looking for a new contract to get more guaranteed as he gets older?
So when you're GM, either trying to make the trade or trying to get the player in the trade, how much are you willing to, I know it varies player to player, but how much of this Jalen Ramsey contract are you willing to eat if you're Dolphins GM Chris Greer just to move on and get a fresh start?
I think it totally depends on the compensation that you're going to get back. And if you're going to be able to get a higher round pick, then you might take some of that salary on and carry some of it if it's a higher round pick. But then if you're on the other side, if you're the other team, you have to look at it as, are we just a Jalen Ramsey away from competing? And so you look at those type teams and they may take on the full salary just for the year. But if you're a Raiders type team, are you a Jalen Ramsey away from competing? Probably not. So at that point, you were going to ask for permission to have a conversation, to talk to him, to see what he's looking for in terms of contract compensation. And if that's out of your realm, then you just move on and cut your losses.
And I believe the Rams traded a first-round pick a few years ago for Jalen Ramsey, and there was some hand-wringing about that, and then they went on and won the Super Bowl. So it just depends. The Rams maybe didn't feel like they were a player away at the time. Turns out they were a player away, and they very well could be a player away right now. It's so hard to tell what that division is going to look like. So a reunion there wouldn't be the craziest thing, I don't think.
No, not at all. And then you mix in their defensive backs coach, Aubrey Pleasant, who's very well thought of around the league, and he can handle guys like Jalen Ramsey. Now would be a good time for them to do that because they have the structure in place to handle Jalen.
Are you of the opinion, when I ask my burning question, that if the offensive line holds up, that this team has a chance to be a playoff team? You believe that, or are you still have concerns about Tua's health and even the offensive line post-Teron Armstead?
No, I think I agree with you on the offensive line, but my concern is going to always be Tua's health. Can Tua stay healthy? I think the offensive line is going to do their part. I think the backs are going to do their part. But like you said, if Tua's upright and he can keep himself healthy, and with Mike McDaniel's offense and the way they run it and his skill set, they'll be a playoff team. But Tua has to stay healthy.
Yeah, worth noting they signed Zach Wilson to a one-year deal. It's always good to know who the backup is there, and they drafted Quinn Ewers in the 7th round, which is a story that still boggles the mind given where Quinn Ewers was a few years ago. All right, let's head up to Western New York, the old Buffalo Bills. The best team in New York, and it's not even close. They're the only team in New York. That helps their cause there. But let's talk about this. We talked about the last few weeks. This is my favorite draft class. I know you like their draft class a lot. And I know that GM Brandon Beane was pushing back on some of the media and fans' reaction to their draft. I don't know what fans were upset about, but here we are. Your big burning question for the Bills: is this the year the Bills get over the hump in the AFC? Their first 5 picks were on defense. Their second, 5th round pick was a blocking tight end. So it feels like Josh Allen is going to have to carry the load. He's capable of doing that, and the defense now feels like it's the best it's been in a while. Is that enough to scare off the ghost of the Kansas City Chiefs?
I'm sure they sure as hell hope so. Like you said, they've spent a lot of resources. We talked about what they've done in the draft and how they spent those resources on defense. Then you sign a Joey Bosa to defense. Then you extend Khalil Shakir, you have Shakir, where you extended him. Then you extend Bernard, and you extend Benford on defense. And so you have all these guys that you're paying. And so now defense should be taken care of that way. And then now you come back with what Josh Allen is going to have to do. And I think they're set to turn the tide, because, and we'll get to later, I'll tell you my thoughts on Kansas City moving forward.
Typically, we have these conversations in the division about how you build your roster to beat the teams you have to face the most often. What do the Bills need to do? Like, what is their game plan, Rand, to combat what the Chiefs seem to do to them every January. Is that strictly getting after Patrick Mahomes, or is that something else? Because obviously they went defense. Does that feel like the right direction to go, and solely to win that one game that you have yet to win?
Yeah, I think the Eagles gave everyone the blueprint. You got to be able to rush for, and you got to be able to play coverage behind it. And I think if you look at what Buffalo has done, I think they're building that. And I think that's what they're working towards, and being able to play coverage behind the rush of four guys, being able to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes. And again, that blueprint works, and it has worked. And so I think once Buffalo has seen that, and now you have a full offseason to plan for it, I expect them to be better against the Chiefs moving forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Chiefs had their struggles with the Eagles, and then 4 years prior, they had their struggle with the Bucs, who just teed off on Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl, the one that Tom Brady won there. My burning question was, biggest hole is explosive wide receiver, but they've checked every other box for free agency in the draft. So to follow up on your point, no more excuses here. Are you okay with Keon Coleman as your 1A with Josh Palmer and Khalil Shakir, as Shakir will be your 2, and I guess Josh will be your 3?
Yeah, I'm good with it, just because I feel like their new offense isn't designed to feed one person the football. It's to spread it around. And I think Josh is better when he can just throw the ball to the open man, as opposed to trying to keep one specific receiver happy and make sure they're getting their targets.
Yeah, we won't name names, but it felt like there was a lot of that going on a few years ago before they reshuffled the wide receiver room. And the offense has never been the issue. They've certainly been who they have been with Josh Allen. It's been the defense, and they could not have asked for a better restocking of the defense over the last few months since the end of the season. So I think you're exactly right. They are positioned to be the best team in this division. Obviously, best team in the conference, along with the Ravens and the Chiefs, and we'll find out together. Got a long time to do that.